Hello and welcome to the big picture. The tensions between the judiciary and the other two pillars, the legislature and the executive, is not new. But when the country's finance minister and also a former law minister and also a leading legal luminary himself makes a case for legislature to shield itself from the judiciary, it's a matter which needs to be taken serious note of. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, while replying to a debate on the appropriations bill in the Rajya Sabha yesterday, made a startling statement that step by step and brick by brick, the edifice of India's legislature is being destroyed. While pleading with the opposition not to allow this to happen, he said further, and I quote, "With the manner in which encroachment of legislative and executive authority by India's judiciary is taking place, probably financial power and budget making is the last power that you have left." Quote closed. It is not for the first time that political leaders have expressed such concerns. In fact, just last month, President Pranab Mukherjee warned against judicial activism and advocated balance between the three organs to be maintained. But now that the finance minister has directly taken on the judiciary, what does it mean? Has the judiciary really overreached? Why has legislature and executive ceded its space to the judiciary? How to regain the balance? We will discuss all this today with Soli Sorabjee, former Attorney General of India, Justice B.A. Khan, former Chief Justice of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court, on the phone line from Srinagar, Bhupendra Yadav, BJP MP in the Rajya Sabha, Ajay Dua, former Secretary Ministry of Industries and Commerce, Government of India, and Vinod Sharma, Political Editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Sorabjee, do you agree with the Finance Minister when he says that step by step, brick by brick, India's legislature is being destroyed?
Be taken in a literal sense, no. But if the finance minister wanted to convey his frustration, or if I may say his anger, about the hyper-judicial activism which we see sometimes, for example, asking why certain flights are not going to Simla, airlines must go there, and entertaining petitions like banning books on Sikhs, then maybe in that sense, maybe the judiciary has sometimes really exceeded its legitimate authority. But I do not agree with the finance minister if the words are to be taken literally. In fact, the judiciary is ultimately the custodian, the safeguard of the fundamental rights of the people. And if the fundamental rights have been invaded by legislature, executive, it's a duty to step in.
Okay. Bhupendra Yadav, you are a member of the parliament, and the statement says that actually that India's legislature, the edifice of India's legislature is being destroyed. How can you blame only the judiciary for that?
No, nobody deny that judiciary is for the protection of fundamental right of a citizen. Even it is not denied by the Honorable Finance Minister also. What was the context yesterday? Yesterday there was a context that there was some news that court will order for creating a fund for a drought relief. That was the reference.
That was the drought mitigation fund which the Supreme Court ordered.
That was the reference. The Government of India has already passed two acts, SDRF and NDRF. There is already money is there. And because money is used by Government of India, after the appropriation by the Parliament, no money from the fund of Government of India can spend without any appropriation. This is the functioning of the practice of the government, and this is the right which is given by the Parliament. So, can a judiciary take over that right which is given to a Parliament, to a sovereign nature function which is done by the Parliament, and ultimately there is a accountability for that fund. Only that context, and I think that was a right.
There was another context in which the finance minister was speaking. He was talking of the GST bill. He was pleading with the opposition as far as, don't give away these powers, because the Congress was talking about creating some kind of a tribunal with a judge on it.
I will clear that context also. As far as the GST is concerned, there was a debate whether the 18% cap in the constitution is suggested by opposition is right or wrong. So, in that context, he was categorically stated that taxing to the people is a prerogative of a political functionary, and we will resolve it as per the demand of public. So, in GST Council, in GST Council statement, he stated that even in GST, we can't make this type of cap. In this context, he was quoted.
Okay, I mean, these are two contexts, I agree. But, he has also made a larger statement. I'm sure you will agree that this is not just related to these two contexts which you're talking about. He's talking about a larger context when he says that step by step, brick by brick.
My specifically question which is aroused in this debate is that whether to interfering in a public policy matter, where the matter related with the expenditure of a state, you can say that is right or you can say that is wrong. But you cannot create your own fund which is interference in the public policy. I mean, that is a matter.
No, that is okay, that is fine. But there's, obviously, I'm sure we'll get the other panelists to talk about it. But let me get Mr. Justice Khan in on this. Justice Khan, what is the, how do you look at this statement? Because we have discussed these issues a little while back also. Is it just related to these two contexts in which Mr. Bhupendra Yadav is talking about, or do you see the National Judicial Commission, the way the Supreme Court quashed that act which was passed by the Parliament, and now the Uttarakhand decision? There are several things which has resulted in some kind of a friction between the judiciary and the executive as well as the legislature.
Girish, I am shocked by this statement, more so coming from Mr. Jaitley, who has been the product of the judiciary, who has earned his bread and butter from the judiciary, and who has been contributory to any overreach also at times by the judiciary, alleged overreach. It is very alarming to hear that legislature is being destroyed by the judiciary brick by brick. Why can't Mr. Jaitley?
I think it got disconnected. I can tell you that there is nothing devious about this. It's all about the system there. I'm sure we'll get back to him. Mr. Dua, how do you look at this? You have been part of the executive. You were a secretary of the Government of India, and this is not a problem which is just recent. It has been going on for quite some time.
First, Girish, in the context in which the statement was made yesterday, I think the finance minister was certainly expressing his frustration, but probably he wasn't factually right or legally right on an issue that the Supreme Court in its judgment, which it delivered yesterday on the drought relief matter, had treated drought as a matter of disaster and covered it under the National Disaster Relief Fund, the Act of 2005, which it was very well within its powers to do. And that Act also provides for, when the need arises, creation of a National Disaster Management Fund. So, what was provided within the national central law, it has suggested that within 6 months you create the fund. So, I think the court was within its powers, within its reach to have recommended what it did. The question of public policy, whether it was states and the center were delivering it well or not, is something which, if you cede space, then somebody steps in, and here it was a case of the court stepping in and saying, look, we think that the situation on the ground is far worse than what the state governments are believing. Already you are admitting in your affidavit that 330 odd million, that's 1/3 of the country or 1/4 of the country is affected, etc. So that apart, I think the finance minister used this occasion to impress upon the opposition that they should not cede space further in matters of taxation, because the cap.
Yes.
One has the issue of the cap, as was mentioned. The more important, that if there is a dispute between center and states, please do not allow a third body to come in. That on that issue, probably, I think he was well within his right, and something which for considerable time that people are wearing around to the opinion that what is a legislative function, let it be kept within
decided
that.
within the
Yes. But
legislature
having
or the political executive.
yeah, having said that, let me just make two observations. One, since when do we see that the judicial activism, I am not calling it overreach at all, since when has judicial activism come to the fore? I probably see a coincidence ever since the Supreme Court started entertaining public interest litigations. Because almost every issue is being brought to its notice, and those are issues by very name as a public interest litigation, an issue of public policy, etc. They get into it, and because the center is not able to, or the concerned government is not able to make out a convincing case before the court, then it passes directions in the matter, and the directions, because it's the public interest litigation, by and large affect public, come within the purview of public policy.
Okay, I think that's interesting point. Which I think we got Mr. Khan. Yes, Justice Khan. Can you please continue on that note with what you are saying?
Girish, I was saying that this is a shocking statement and coming from Mr. Arun Jaitley, who has been a part of the judiciary and who has earned his bread and butter from judiciary and who has attained this position because of his being a part of the judiciary. Saying that legislature is being destroyed by judiciary is something very, very serious. Very, very serious. I was giving it a thought, and I was only wondering, how can this blame be shifted? Why can't these parliamentarians introspect and look upon their own selves? Who is maintaining the parliamentary dignity? Who is indulging in unparliamentary conduct in the parliaments? Who is disrupting the parliamentary proceedings for days on? And how many times is our parliament and legislature shut down by the should I say, unwarranted conduct and behavior of the parliamentarians? Who is indulging in acts of hooliganism? Chairs are thrown at each other, mics are thrown at each other. These are the representatives who are meant to highlight the grievances of their electors. And our legislators are turning into akhadas at times. Who makes them so? And even, may I tell you, that even in case of lawmaking, for example, let us take that.
Sorry, sir. Sorry, I think there's a problem there. The weather is not good in Srinagar, I'm told. That's why we are having these repeated problems. Vinod, do you see this? In what context do you see what the finance minister said yesterday? I mean, the context which Bhupendra Yadav is talking about is very valid. But do you see a larger concern behind the statements being made by the finance minister?
As Mr. Sorabjee just now pointed out, that if the judiciary were to tell the executive that you must make sure that there were flights from Delhi to Shimla, or that a judge of the High Court the other day called at number 100 and said it was not responding, and he is, sort of used his position as a judge to call the commissioner into question. Now, that is a kind of silly activism, I'd say. But there is something called serious activism. And in a country like ours, where there is so much of disparity, there is so much of disparity both in terms of spread of development, both in terms of access to judicial redressal, that a judiciary which is not activist will not be rising to the expectations of the people. I know there is a huge debate already about the lack of adequate number of judges, lack of adequate infrastructure. The parliament itself has been debating that. The parliamentarians are seized of it. You see, in the instant case, though there is a background to it, and I think the background is more the National Judicial Appointment Commission, where the entire political class was on one side and wanting to rein in the judiciary or to keep, pick up a stake in the appointment of judges. Now, that hasn't happened. And there were serious questions about the modus that was put in place by way of consultation and how they would be appointed. But in the instant case, the finance minister, you see, the court was commenting on an existing law passed by the legislature, by Parliament of India. It was saying that the guidebook that you have on the drought, on fighting drought, you better revisit that. You set a time frame for states for declaring drought exigency, drought emergency in their respective areas. That act in time to reach succor to people. And it was on the strength of the government's own statistics that were placed before the court. Yes, of course, the suggestion for drought mitigation fund came at a time when the appropriation bill, the finance bill had already been passed by Parliament, and to that extent the finance minister was legitimate in his complaint.
About that also there is a difference of opinion on that.
No. I mean, let's give, what I am saying is that there is a cause for complaint on the part of the executive and Parliament, and there is a cause for the judiciary to be activist. You see, and you have to come to a meeting ground somewhere.
No,
in a country like India...
I think, Vinod, you made that point. Very good point you have made. Bhupendra, would you like to respond? Or I'll go to Mr. Sorabjee and come back. Mr. Sorabjee, one of the points made by Ajay Dua, a former secretary in the government of India, he said PILs, the beginning of the judiciary, the courts accepting these PILs and looking into these matters, that is where it all started, this judicial activism, as some would like to call it, some would like to call it judicial overreach, whatever it is. You think that is where the problems began, or if you want to call it a problem at all?
I don't think the PIs are really responsible. The question is, the court should not entertain PIs which relate to matters which are clearly beyond the judicial ken. As I told you, ban the book about Sikh jokes, direct airlines to Simla and other places. So really speaking, sometimes judiciary also, we'll call it overreaches itself or exceeds its limits. But these things happen. And you must see the statement of Arun Jaitley, who I know very well, who's a very mature politician, a lawyer, as a sign of exasperation. Don't take it as absolute laying down government policy. Don't make much of it. He did say something which really he ought not to have said, because if he meant brick by brick Parliament is being destroyed, but that was rather an exaggerated notion. But see it in the context, don't magnify the thing. And the main thing is if both the judiciary keeps itself within its prescribed limits and the executive does the work which it's supposed to do, does not neglect its functions, which results in the violation of fundamental rights of the people, and the Parliament also acts according to the requirements of the Constitution, then ideally there will be no conflict. But it's bound to be conflict. And I think one of the reasons which has really rattled the government is the striking down of the NJAC. NJAC was struck down, and that has really upset the government.
Not just the government, Mr. Sorabjee, I think the entire political class did not take it very kindly to what the judiciary had done. But you are saying that we should not take it literally what he has said and things like that. But it's not just the finance minister who said what yesterday, but it is generally the political class which has been showing certain kind of discomfort in the way the judiciary has been approaching a lot of matters in this country. Would you agree with that? The tensions between the executive and the judiciary, the legislature and the judiciary are real. We cannot just brush it under the carpet.
No question of brushing under the carpet, but don't magnify them. The questions, they are real, they're bound to happen. And it's not happened only today. Have they been happy in the past with what the judiciary did? When they struck down the Bank Nationalization Act? When they struck down the Privy Purse Order? Well, these in a democracy, in a country where there are three wings, don't expect each wing to be completely perfect and perform its function as they ought to do. They don't, and that's where the imbalance comes in. And judiciary tries to redress the imbalance, and trying to redress it, sometimes it also crosses the, if I may say so, sixer laga deta hai.
Okay.
So
Sir,
these
Mr.
things
Sorabjee-
possibly, I think, was the reason.
Mr.
All
Sorabjee,
Nikam, all I want to say is this.
yes.
I want to. Don't please read into it too much. Don't magnify it. It's not a statement of government, official statement of the government. He said it. He was provoked. He was exasperated. Leave it at that. Don't create more of a tension between the executive and the judiciary and the legislature.
Certainly,
and judiciary.
you know, it's not our intention.
We
Sir,
should
sir,
take it,
Vinod Sharma,
if
Vinod
I may
Sharma,
say so,
wa-
with a,
Sir, Vinod Sharma wants to ask a question to you.
Sir, I want to ask you a question. Yes, of course, we should not magnify it. But here is a statement by a minister who's also been a lawyer and law minister on the floor of the House. And there is a statement by the Chief Justice of India who almost breaks down when he talks about lack of facilities for the judiciary and the existing vacancies and alluding to certain recommendations which were pending with the government had not been cleared by the government. And he breaks down in public. Now, when those kind of, this kind of demonstrative expression of sentiment happens, surely people are bound to read meaning into it, and we can't but highlight it, sir, or take it to the people.
highlight it, but don't magnify it. They are both human beings. Chief Justice all got emotional. Arun Jaitley also got rather emotional or
Yes,
exasperated.
yes,
whatever
yes,
it
that's
is.
right.
But don't magnify it, for God's sake.
Okay. Okay,
See it
sir.
in the context.
Okay. Okay. Bhupendra Yadav, as political class, you need to take blame for whatever has happened so far. Would you admit that the political class also needs to introspect about why they have ceded this space to the judiciary?
No, every either it is a judiciary or it is a politician, everybody introspect themselves, because it is we can't say that you introspect, you don't introspect, because even you have read the statement of Shri Soli Sorabjee also. Every institution in the state have their own limit, that we are giving a power to a judiciary that they will review the act passed by the parliament. But their limitation of that review is there, that particular act which is passed by the parliament is not to be ultra vires to the constitution, not to the ultra vires to the basic structure of the constitution. That limit is also there, but that doesn't mean you take a policy decision also. That doesn't mean you order for the expense on the expenditure of the state without any appropriation. Every institution there have own limit, and even I want to say, even not the institution, every individual person has also needed introspection. Without introspection, you can't do your work.
These general statements.
It's not a general statement. It is.
But there is a serious problem as far as the political executive has conducted itself, the legislature, as Justice Khan rightly points out. What is in the minds of the people? The minds of the people are
Sir,
these very unruly things which happens in the parliament.
What Justice Khan commented, even that is not a matter of reply also. What is language is, Arunji is a political activist. He works as a student leader. He has a political life. And what Justice Khan commented, I think that is not matter of reply.
No, he said, I don't.
He was not giving a very serious.
His bread and butter has come from.
I think that is not a right statement. That is not a debate point also.
Okay.
Even you are agree that is not a right statement. That was a subject matter of debate also.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Mr. Sorabjee, you want to react?
Yes. No, I agree with it. Please, don't. Arun got emotional, Chief Justice got emotional, human beings get emotional. Let us not get too emotional either.
But Mr. Sorabjee, the Supreme Court, commented on this drought situation under the rubric of life and liberty, which is a fundamental right. So don't you think that they had a right to comment on that and advise the government?
Yes, they have, but very often it happens. Many things are read into Article 21, life and liberty.
Yes.
And
Okay.
sometimes directions are given.
Okay.
Look, it also depends on the bench. There are certain benches which do not give such directions. They are more conservative. There are some people who like to be rather hyperactive.
Sir, but
But
as
it's
far as the
bound to
ordinary
happen
people are concerned, they
because
won't
these
understand the
institutions are
differences.
manned by human beings.
Okay. Okay, but, Justice Khan,
Yes.
now that this thing is out in the open, you think that this is something which that the political class, the judicial class will need to sit together and work it out, or how do you look at this?
Girish, may I first disagree with Mr. Soli Sorabjee. This is not a war of emotions. And in emotional outbursts, you can't denigrate an institution like judiciary and accuse it of destroying the legislation. It's a very, very serious statement coming from a legal luminary and the finance minister. Having said so, may I...
I think there's still... yes, Mr. Dua.
I think the introspection which we are talking about, that's, I would say, a very serious or a very large connotation of it. We have to see the context that over time, the executive and to some extent the legislature have lost the faith of the people. And
that is where the problem lies.
Everybody has started giving more credibility to the judiciary. Probably comparatively that's the right position. For instance, a lot of legislators also on actions of the speaker or what has transpired within the four walls of the parliament or a particular legislature seek remedy not in the legislature or from the speaker but from the courts.
Exactly.
And that's happened within the executive as well as the public also, because public grievances are not going to be addressed by the executive, and executive could be political executive or bureaucracy. People think that the best way to get the relief or the fair order is to go to the judiciary. So it is it's over time this ceding of space has taken place, and perhaps there is ground for it. And it's not a particular government or a particular political party, but we need to be looking at that. And having said that, I would also say that, as has been mentioned, the judiciary also needs to see in what, considering that we just talked about the Chief Justice breaking down on a matter of saying the infrastructure is not there, judges aren't there, etc. In how many matters? Is every issue which comes before it by way of PIL particularly, I come back to that issue,
no,
should it be getting involved
Mr. Dua,
in
one
that?
thing which you are missing, the political class is missing. You know why,
Yes.
Mr. Yadav?
Yes.
You see, it has become now a tactics, political tactics to show an existing government as dysfunctional. And when that tactics is deployed by one formation against another, we saw it happening in Manmohan Singh's time, and we are seeing it happening now. You are giving open invitation to the judiciary to intervene.
Okay.
And set things right.
Sorry, would you like to react to that?
I want to say that there is a challenge before the judiciary also. First, they address the challenge before the judiciary. Even today, the main problem in our country is a relief to a poor person. Whether poor person is able to knock the door of Supreme Court or not, whether the existing system, whether the expenses.
Why should the poor person go up to the Supreme Court? Why can't the executive?
Then justice,
why can't the executive?
Then justice is available to the lower courts also. There is some difficulties there, that area also.
Okay, Justice Khan, quick reaction to you from you, sir. Sorry, we are getting disconnected repeatedly.
Yeah, I'm losing also my sequence in this. Let me first correct Mr. Yadav.
Yes.
When I was referring to Mr. Jaitley's background, it was only in the context that the man knows that judiciary can't destroy a legislature.
I think on that unfortunate note, we are getting disconnected repeatedly. On that note, we need to end this program. But this is a serious debate. Mr. Sorabjee says, don't magnify it. But we are not trying to magnify it. We are trying to discuss, the seriousness with which the finance minister said. We hope that there is more discussion and more, balance which needs to be there between the three pillars is restored. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the Big Picture same time tomorrow.